You may have seen in the Twitterverse and elsewhere the hashtag called hashtag release the Snyder Cut. Yes, this refers to the original idea and film that Zack Snyder did for the Justice League film that was to follow the storyline he set forth in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Well, it's a long-winded story about how all this happened. There's been a lot of speculation, and there basically were two camps that discuss it. There were the people who, like myself, want to see the Snyder Cut in whatever form that's possible, even if it's the unfinished stuff, so it'll be similar to what they did with the Donner cut of the original Superman. And the other camp is, there is no Snyder Cut, it does not exist, which was, right off the bat, a very foolish stance. The man was working on it right up at the moment that Joss Whedon took over. One of the circumstances of the death of his daughter and so on and so forth, and probably some people at Warner's just thinking Joss was going to come in and do that Marvel magic overnight on this movie. And and I've covered this in my videos and Nailsin ratings on the whole sad story and the interference of it all. And Zack Snyder had to take the bulk of the blame, and people they just can't stand the guy. They immediately mention his name, and everything that went wrong with the DC movies is all his fault. That simply is not true. Now, he takes some amount of blame in some of his choices with the movies, which even I don't like, even though I did enjoy his versions of the films. They are flawed. There are problems there. I didn't like the death of Jonathan Kent, the way that was handled in Man of Steel. I didn't care for the Lex Luthor characterization in Batman vs. Superman. And the whole concept of Batman vs. Superman was flawed to begin with, but there again, that's not really on Zack Snyder. It's on Warner Brothers, since Zack was hired to do a Man of Steel franchise. I would assume 3 movies and you're done. But things changed, and they didn't like the numbers that Man of Steel produced, and so they wanted a Batman involved in this. And plus, after Marvel's success, they definitely wanted to pursue this DC Universe on film type thing. And so they would just cram it all into one movie and try to do in one movie what Marvel did in, 5 years at the time, or somewhere thereabouts. So that was impossible. Nobody could do that. And so ultimately it was pretty much doomed to failure from the get-go, even though there's some fascinating concepts in it. And primarily one of the weird scenes in it is the nightmare sequence, as it's referred to, where Bruce Wayne, while he's stealing some data from LexCorp, he's waiting for it. It's a buttload of files, and it's taken a while for him to decrypt and all that sort of stuff. And he drifts off to sleep, and then suddenly it's the future, and it's Darkseid is clearly, his symbol is burned into the earth, and you can see the fire pits and everything. Darkseid has taken over the world, and Batman is leading a resistance, apparently, against the minions that now run the earth. And he's looking for kryptonite to fight Superman and all this stuff. And then evil Superman shows up, and apparently he blames Batman for the death of Lois Lane. And there we are. Bruce wakes up at the moment it appears Superman's about to kill him. And suddenly he's being visited by the Flash from the future. And the Flash says this and tells him, you've got to look for Lois Lane. And the Flash says, I'm too soon. Oh, I'm at the wrong point in time, because Bruce Wayne doesn't even know who this kid is and doesn't understand this. And then in a flash, he's gone. So that is the setup. You know this is a teaser for future stories. It doesn't quite work for the movie as it is, which is probably why it's somewhat of a mistake there to be so blatant about something like that. But at the time, they were moving on ahead to do the Justice League movie. Well, events turned out what they were, and Zack Snyder left the project. Joss Whedon came in to reshoot it. Before Zack left, he was already reshooting it, keep in mind. at that, because Warner's decided the vision that he had and that he had completed in photography, that was the thing that was always there. And we knew that for quite some time now, and yet still people would say there's not even that, you know, and that's just ridiculous. But they didn't like the length of it. It was very long. So recently, Zack Snyder's been doing this Q&A sessions while people were viewing his movies, and that I believe the selection was Dawn of the Dead and Batman vs. Superman, and Man of Steel, I believe, was a part of that as well, and so on. So when you get to Batman vs. Superman and the Q&A session comes up, well, finally people, they've been wanting to talk to him about this Snyder Cut business. And so he explains, and I'm going by an article from Cosmic Book News that talks about this, and so he explains that he and Terrio had already written the script for Justice League while they're still in the middle of dealing with Batman versus Superman. And Warner's thought that the script was way too crazy, as he puts it, and they were wanting him to redo it. So they did. They rewrote it, and so that version, as he explains, never got shot. There is no photography on that, but, you know, well, who cares? And we're interested in the one that you were going to release, that you did shoot. So, but yes, the suspicions about why these constant changes and then 11th hour type changes on Justice League were happening, well, it's because the reception of Batman versus Superman was not that great. It made its money, but the word of mouth came, and the idea was people were starting to feel burned by DC movies. And then Suicide Squad didn't help either. It just really pretty much practically nailed the coffin, and it's still amazing that Wonder Woman managed to beat all of that, and because Wonder Woman is the best they've done of these, and that includes Aquaman, which is it's a good one, but it's nowhere near the League of Wonder Woman. That's their best they've done, but Aquaman made the big money. But anyway, so that's the situation that they were in. So they were panicking, and they didn't want it to be that long, and I'm assuming that there's a lot of darkness in here that in his version that they didn't want. So and who knows what the reshoots would have been had he stayed on. Could he have at least maintained the plot with Steppenwolf wanting to find power to oppose Darkseid? I don't know. So anyway, he gets to this. He says, the truth is the nightmare sequence in this movie, right, was always my idea that all of that would eventually be explained, of course, and that we would end up in the distant future where Darkseid has taken over the Earth and where Superman has succumbed to the anti-life and is now with his ragtag band. I'm assuming this might not be quoted very well, but that Batman has a ragtag band of opposing Superman and Darkseid. But there was a few members of the Justice League that had survived to that world, and that they were fighting and trying, and it goes off here. And then so Batman is with the broken half of Cyborg, because there's only half of him because of whatever happened. That there was some talk about and this is just me talking, that in Justice League, Cyborg wouldn't survive the end of the film, that Steppenwolf killed him and broke him into pieces, and they restored him, but he was mostly all machine at that point. And then that would be the version of Cyborg you would have seen in this futuristic landscape, I suppose. So they were working on an equation to jump Flash back to tell Bruce, and that's what you're seeing, that the Flash does go back in time to warn Bruce Wayne. And apparently there were 2 points, and he only had 2 shots at doing this. And so the first one, he gets it wrong and then has to try again to warn Bruce Wayne about the death of Lois Lane and what it would lead to. And so apparently there was a scene in which Darkseid goes into the Batcave, and apparently Lois is there and kills her. So, but I mean, I suppose in the series of events, for whatever reason, Superman's convinced that it's Batman's fault that she died. And of course, with the anti-life equation taking him over, it wouldn't have even, with that kind of power, I don't know that it would have even mattered what had happened. He would just be dominated by Darkseid. But I mean, it's a bit odd that Darkseid kills Lois. So instead of being mad at Darkseid, you're mad at Batman. You know? But these are just tidbits about what it would have been. But he does reveal that that the movie would almost have been 4 hours long. Now, I'd heard 3 hours. 4 hours. I can understand. Look, you just can't do that. And so we're going to have to cut that down to something. And now keep in mind, initially they were, and he doesn't go into this here, at least from this article, but it was they were going to shoot back to back Justice League 1, Justice League 2. And so maybe that's what was going on at this time. And then they come in, let's make it one movie. And it's like, you can't. So Darkseid doesn't even appear. He's mentioned briefly in the Justice League that you got, but nothing there indicating what any of that was about, which hurt the film quite a bit, because in a lot of ways Steppenwolf's plot doesn't even make sense. So all that's gone, but it could be that's why. I mean, you really expect people to sit through a 4-hour movie? That's really pushing it. And another thing, he probably figured, oh well, yeah, I'll make a cut that's good for theaters, and then there'll be a director's cut, just like there was with Batman versus Superman. But I don't know. But so we're still not enough there to know if Zack had finished the reshoots to make it a 2-hour movie, would it have been what Joss Whedon ended up doing? I mean, obviously there would be some differences in the look of the film, and some elements of it, like the Russian family and all that, wouldn't have been in it. But I'm assuming, again, that the main thing about Steppenwolf's plot, his motives, the original idea was better than what ended up in the movie, which was pretty much nothing. And so there's that to think of. But this was interesting. It does confirm that a lot of it was panic over the critical reaction to Batman versus Superman, which made them change direction somewhat here, and then eventually to where you're almost just abandoning the whole thing. And at the 11th hour, which is, really a bad decision on Warner's part to reshoot the movie at horrible expense. I heard figures that the reshoots ended up costing about the same amount as it cost to shoot the thing in the first place, which is, it's just disastrous that you're actually thinking you're going to profit in that manner. That's way too much money to have blown on it, and to gamble that, and then to push it to its release date when it was obvious that you should have canceled that and pushed it into the next year. To basically, you'd have to do an entirely different film here. But of course, that goes back to Sugihara wanting his bonus, and well, some other bonuses got him fired. But well, that's the way the cookie crumbles in life sometimes. So it's interesting that we got some details here from Zack Snyder on this. And basically confirmed that there's special effects needed to complete it. The principal photography is done. There's a complete narrative there for his version of Justice League, but it would be up to the Warner Brothers to decide if they wanted to fund the completion of visual effects. And considering, like I said, that with the money they've squandered on this project already, it's a bit of a gamble that it would be cost prohibitive to do. And so maybe not. Maybe if they feel the atmosphere has changed, and there would be some interest in that, depending on what direction they're going now with Shazam and whatnot going forward. And they're just basically saying, look, for now they're just going to be these standalone movies. Whether or not we'll connect them later, we'll see. But as for Justice League and Zack Snyder's cut, that would just be like a side thing. If they felt confident enough to go ahead and finish it in some form and then release it, I don't know. I would rather be released on Blu-ray, but maybe they'll say, hey, it's on the DC Universe streaming service or something like that. And that could be a possibility. But all in all, just based on the descriptions of the plot involving Steppenwolf wanting to take on Darkseid, it just works better than Steppenwolf is coming because he can smell your fear. That was, oh boy, but it's like, look, I had to come up with something. It's just, that was pretty bad. But anyway, there you go. Zack Snyder's take on the Snyder Cut for what it is. There you go. All right, thanks for watching and listening. Please like and subscribe, and for those of you that have subscribed, thank you very much. And check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you. Yes, you.